Hi there and welcome to Info World. Today's video is about the 10 biggest warships of history. Without further wasting any time, let's get started. Top of the list is Yamato class. The Yamato class battleships were two battleships of the Imperial Japanese Navy, Yamato and Musashi, laid down leading up to World War II and completed as designed. A third hull laid down in 1940 was converted to an aircraft carrier, Shinano, during construction, displacing nearly 72,000 long tons at full load. The completed battleships were the heaviest ever constructed. The class carried the largest naval artillery ever fitted to a warship, 9 460mm naval guns, each capable of firing 1 460kg shells over 42 kilometers. Both Yamato and Musashi spent the majority of their careers in naval bases at Brunei, Truk, and Kure. All three ships were sunk by the U.S. Navy, Musashi by air strikes while participating in the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944. The Shinano torpedoed by Archerfish while underway from Yokosuka to Kure for fitting out in November 1944, and the Yamato by air strikes while en route from Japan to Okinawa as part of Operation Tengo in April 1945. The Yamato-class battleships had primary armaments consisting of three gun turrets mounting 46 cm Type 94 naval guns, the largest guns ever fitted to a warship. In the original design, the Yamato-class secondary armament comprised 12 15.5 cm 60 Type 3 guns mounted in 4 gun turrets. Initially, heavy anti-aircraft defense was provided by a dozen 40-caliber 127mm Type 89 dual-purpose guns and 6 double turrets, 3 on each side of the superstructure. The main belt of armor along the side of the vessel was up to 410mm thick, and lower belt armor 200mm thick. Propulsion in most of the designs was a hybrid diesel turbine combination, with an indicated horsepower of 147,948. These, in turn, drove 4 6-meter propellers. Coming up next is Iowa class. The Iowa class was a class of 6 fast battleships ordered by the United States Navy in 1939. And 1940, 4 vessels, Iowa, New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin, were completed. 2 more, Illinois and Kentucky, were laid down but canceled in 1945 and 1958, respectively, before completion, and both hulls were scrapped in 1958-59. In the Pacific theater of World War II, they served primarily as fast escorts for Essex-class aircraft carriers of the Fast Carrier Task Force and also shelled Japanese positions. During the Korean War, the battleships provided naval gunfire support for United Nations forces, and in 1968, New Jersey shelled Viet Cong and Vietnam People's Army forces in the Vietnam War. During Operation Desert Storm in 1991, Missouri and Wisconsin fired missiles and 16-inch guns at Iraqi targets. Work on what would eventually become the Iowa-class battleship began on the first studies in early 1938, at the direction of Admiral Thomas C. Hart, head of the General Board. The Iowa-class battleships are 860 feet long at the water line. The primary armament of an Iowa-class battleship consisted of 9 breech-loading 16-inch by 50 caliber Mark 7 naval guns, which were housed in 3 gun turrets, 2 forward and 1 aft. The Iowas carried 25 by 38 caliber Mark 12 guns and 10 Mark 28 Mod 2 enclosed base ring mounts. The Oerlikon 20mm gun, one of the most heavily produced anti-aircraft guns of the Second World War, entered service in 1941 and replaced the 0.50-inch M2 Browning MG on a 1-for-1 basis. The powerplant of the Iowas consists of 8 Babcock and Wilcox boilers and 4 sets of double-reduction cross-compound geared turbines, with each turbine set driving a single shaft. The plant produced 212,000 shaft horsepower and propelled the ship up to a maximum speed of 32.5 kilonewtons at full load displacement. The citadel consisting of the magazines and engine rooms was protected by an SDS outer hull plating 1.5 inches thick. The deck armor consists of a 1.5 inches thick SDS weather deck. Coming up is Bismarck class. The Bismarck class was a pair of fast battleships built for Nazi Germany's Kriegsmarine shortly before the outbreak of World War II. The ships were the largest and most powerful warships built for the Kriegsmarine, displacing more than 41,000 metric tons. Bismarck was laid down in July 1936 and completed in September 1940, while her sister Tirpitz's keel was laid in October 1936 and work finished in February 1941. Both ships had short service careers. Bismarck conducted only one operation, Operation Reinübung. Tirpitz's career was less dramatic. She operated in the Baltic Sea briefly in 1941 before being sent to Norwegian waters in 1942. She was repeatedly attacked by the Royal Navy and Royal Air Force between 1942 and 1944, but she was not seriously damaged in these attacks. In 1944, Lancaster bombers hit the ship with 2 tallboy bombs, which caused extensive internal damage and capsized the battleship. Tirpitz was broken up for scrap between 1948 and 1957. Very thick vertical belt armor was adopted, along with heavy upper citadel armor plating and extensive splinter protection in the bow and stern of the ships. The Bismarck-class ships both had 3 sets of geared turbine engines. Bismarck was equipped with Blohm and Voss turbines, while Tirpitz used Brown Boveri and Company engines. Each set of turbines drove a 3-bladed screw that was 4.7 meters in diameter. Bismarck's and Tirpitz's main battery consisted of 8 38cm SKC-34 guns and 4 twin turrets, Anton and Bruno in a super-firing pair forward of the superstructure and Caesar and Dora aft. The ship's secondary battery consisted of 12 15cm SKC-28 guns mounted in 6 twin turrets. As built, Bismarck and Tirpitz were equipped with an anti-aircraft battery of 16 10.5cm C-33 65 caliber guns and 8 twin mounts, 16 3.7cm C-30 guns and 8 dual mounts, and 12 2cm C-30 guns and individual mounts. The Bismarck-class ships had an armored belt that ranged in thickness from 220 to 320 millimeters. The thickest section of armor covered the central portion, where the gun turrets, ammunition magazines, and machinery spaces were located. Up next is HMS Vanguard. HMS Vanguard was a British fast battleship built during the Second World War and commissioned after the war ended. She was the largest and fastest of the Royal Navy's battleships, the only ship of her class, and the last battleship to be built. By early 1939, it was clear that the first 2 Lion-class battleships could not be delivered before 1943, at the earliest, and that further battleship construction would be necessary to match the German and Japanese battleships already under construction. Using 4 existing twin 15-inch mountings offered the possibility of bypassing this bottleneck, and allowed the construction of a single fast battleship more quickly than building more Lion-class ships. The turrets were originally built for the battlecruisers Courageous and Glorious during the First World War. Vanguard had an overall length of 814 feet 4 inches. As a fleet flagship, her complement was 115 officers and 1,860 men in 1947. Vanguard had 4 sets of single reduction geared Parsons steam turbines housed in separate engine rooms. Each set consisted of 1 high pressure and 1 low pressure turbine, driving a propeller 14 feet 9 inches in diameter. The ship's main armament consisted of 8 42 caliber BL 15 inches Mk1 guns and 4 twin hydraulically powered gun turrets, A, B, X and Y from bow to stern. The secondary armament consisted of 16 50 caliber QF 5.25 inches Mk1 dual-purpose guns and 8 twin gun mounts. Short-range air defense was provided by 73 Bofors 40mm AA guns in a variety of mountings. Vanguard was unique among British battleships in having remote power control for her main, secondary and tertiary guns along with the Admiralty Fire Control Table MKX for surface fire control of the main armament. It was bounded on the inside by the 1.75 to 1.5 inches torpedo bulkhead. Vanguard's conning tower was therefore protected with 3 inches of armor on the face and 2.5 inches on the sides and rear. On the 9th of October 1959, the Admiralty announced that Vanguard would be scrapped, as she was considered obsolete and too expensive to maintain. She was decommissioned on the 7th of June 1960 and sold to BISCO for £560,000. On number 5 is French battleship Richelieu. Richelieu was a French fast battleship, the lead ship of the Richelieu class. Built as a response to the Italian Littorio class, the Richelieus were based on their immediate predecessors of the Dunkirk class. She was powered by 4 Parsons geared steam turbines and 6 oil-fired Searle water tube boilers, which developed a total of 155,000 shaft horsepower and yielded a maximum speed of 32 knots. The ship could steam for 9,500 nautical miles. The ship carried 4 WAR-130 seaplanes on the quarterdeck, and the aircraft facilities consisted of a steam catapult and a crane to handle the float planes. She was armed with 8 380mm 45 model 1935 guns arranged in 2 quadruple gun turrets. Her secondary armament consisted of 9 152mm 55 MLE 1930 guns mounted in 3 triple turrets, arranged on the rear superstructure. Close-range anti-aircraft defense was provided by a battery of 8 37mm guns in twin mounts and 20 13.2mm machine guns in 4 quadruple and 2 twin mounts. The ship's belt armor was 330mm thick amidships. The main armored deck was 170mm thick, and the conning tower had 340mm thick sides. She was condemned on the 16th of January 1968 and sold to the Genoa-based shipbreaker Cantieri Navali Santa Maria in September. On number 6 is HMS Hood. HMS Hood was a battlecruiser of the Royal Navy. Hood was the first of the planned 4 Admiral-class battlecruisers to be built during the First World War, already under construction when the Battle of Jutland occurred in mid-1916. Hood was involved in many showing the flag exercises between her commissioning in 1920 and the outbreak of war in 1939, including training exercises in the Mediterranean Sea and a circumnavigation of the globe with the Special Service Squadron in 1923 and 1924. She was attached to the Mediterranean Fleet following the outbreak of the Second Italo-Ethiopian War in 1935. In May 1941, Hood and the battleship Prince of Wales were ordered to intercept the German battleship Bismarck and the heavy cruiser Prince Eugen, which were en route to the Atlantic, where they were to attack convoys. On the 24th of May 1941, early in the Battle of the Denmark Strait, Hood was struck by several German shells, exploded, and sank with the loss of all but 3 of her crew of 1,418. Hood had an overall length of 860 feet 7 inches. She displaced 42,670 long tons. The admirals were powered by 4 Brown Curtis geared steam turbines, each driving 1 propeller shaft using steam provided by 24 Yarrow boilers. The battlecruiser's turbines were designed to produce 144,000 shaft horsepower, which would propel the ship at 31 knots. The main battery of the Admiral-class ships consisted of 8 BL 15 inches Mk1 guns and hydraulically powered twin-gun turrets. The ship's secondary armament consisted of 12 BL 5.5 inches Mk1 guns, each with 200 rounds. 2 quadruple mountings for the Vickers 0.5 inches Mk3 machine gun were added in 1933 with 2 more mountings added in 1937. The armored belt consisted of face-hardened Krupp cemented armor, arranged in 3 strakes. The main waterline belt was 12 inches thick between A and Y barbettes and thin to 5 to 6 inches towards the ship's ends, but did not reach either the bow or the stern. On May 24, 1941, was hit on the boat deck by 1 or more shells from Bismarck's 5th salvo, fired from a range of approximately 16,650 meters. She sank within 3 minutes. This explosion broke the back of Hood, making her bow nearly vertical in the water. Coming up on number 7 is the South Dakota class. The South Dakota class was a group of 4 fast battleships built by the United States Navy. It had a displacement of 44,519 long tons. It had a speed of 27.5 knots. The South Dakota class battleships were 666 feet long. The South Dakota class battleships carried a main battery of 9 16 inches by 45 caliber Mark 6 guns and 3 3-gun turrets. South Dakota was built as a fleet flagship, with an extra deck on her conning tower for extra command space, so her secondary battery had 16 5 inches by 38 caliber Mark 12 guns and 8 Mark 28 Mod 0 twin dual-purpose mounts. The South Dakotas had 8 Babcock and Wilcox 3-drum express-type boilers that had a steam pressure of 600 psi and a temperature of 850 degrees Fahrenheit. The South Dakotas were designed to be resistant against 16 inches shellfire. She was towed out of Bremerton on the 2nd of July 1964 to Mobile, Alabama, where she currently resides as a museum ship, the main attraction of Battleship Memorial Park. Coming up next is Nagato class. The Nagato class battleships were a pair of dreadnought battleships built for the Imperial Japanese Navy towards the end of World War I. Although they were not completed until after the war, they were the first class to carry 41 centimeters guns, the largest afloat and the first bigger than 15 inches. Nagato, the lead ship of the class, frequently served as a flagship. Both ships carried supplies for the survivors of the Great Kanto earthquake in 1923. They were modernized in 933,193 with improvements to their armor and machinery and a rebuilt superstructure in the pagoda mast style. Nagato and her sister ship Mutsu briefly participated in the Second Sino-Japanese War in 1937, and Nagato was the flagship of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto during the attack on Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941 that began the Pacific War. It did not see any combat until the Battle of the Philippine Sea in mid-1944 when she was attacked by American aircraft. Nagato did not fire her main armament against enemy vessels until the Battle of Lake Gulf in October 1944. She was lightly damaged during the battle and returned to Japan the following month for repairs. The IJN was running out of fuel by this time and decided not to fully repair her. Nagato was converted into a floating anti-aircraft platform and assigned to coastal defense duties. After the war, the ship was a target for U.S. nuclear weapon tests during Operation Crossroads in mid-1946. She survived the first test with little damage, but was sunk by the second test. The ships were equipped with 4 Jehon-geared steam turbines, each of which drove one 4.19-meter propeller. it had believed that the ships were capable of only 23 knots. The Nagato-class ship's waterline armor belt was made from Vickers cemented armor and protected 137.14 meters of the hull between the barbettes of the end turrets. On number 9 is Littorio class. The Littorio class, also known as the Vittorio Veneto class, was a class of battleship of the Regia Marina, the Italian Navy. The class was composed of 4 ships, Littorio, Vittorio Veneto, Roma, and Impero, but only the first 3 ships of the class were completed. Built between 1934 and 1942, they were the most modern battleships used by Italy during World War II. The 3 active battleships Littorio, Vittorio Veneto and Roma were transferred to Malta before they were to be interned in Alexandria. While en route to Malta, German bombers attacked the fleet with Fritz X radio-guided bombs, damaging Italia and sinking Roma. Nevertheless, Italia and Vittorio Veneto reached Malta and were interned. The incomplete Impero was seized by the Germans after Italy withdrew from the war, and used as a target, until she was sunk by American bombers in 1945. Italia and Vittorio Veneto were awarded to the United States and Britain, respectively, as war prizes. Italia, Vittorio Veneto, and Impero were broken up for scrap between 1952 and 1954. The ships of the class varied slightly in dimensions. Littorio and Vittorio Veneto were 224.05 meters long between perpendiculars and 237.76 meters long overall. The ship's main battery consisted of 9 381mm L50 and Saldo 1934 guns and 3 triple turrets, 2 in a superfiring pair forward, and 1 aft. The ship's secondary battery consisted of 12 152mm L55 and Saldo Model 1934 guns and 4 triple turrets. The ship's anti-aircraft armament was composed of a powerful battery of 12 90mm L50 guns closely arranged amidships, 20 37mm L54 guns, and 16 20mm L65 guns. The main belt armor of this class was designed and tested to resist 381mm armor-piercing shells at ranges down to 16,000 meters. Last on this list is the King George V class battleships. The King George V class battleships were the most modern British battleships in commission during the Second World War. 5 ships of this class were built. All 5 ships saw combat during World War II, with King George V and Prince of Wales being involved in the action on the 24th of May to the 27th of May 1941 that resulted in the German battleship Bismarck being sunk. Most designs were intended to steam at 27 knots with full power. The main armor belt was 23.5 feet high and covered the whole side from the main armored deck to finish 15 feet below the deep water line. The King George V and the 4 other ships of the class as built carried 10 BL 14 inches Mk7 naval guns, in 2 quadruple turrets fore and aft and a single twin turret behind and above the fore turret. The QF 5.25 inches Mark I dual-purpose gun has been dodged with controversy as well. The RN Gunnery Pocketbook published in 1945 states that the maximum rate of fire should be 10 to 12 rounds per minute. Wartime experience revealed that the maximum weight which the loading numbers could handle comfortably was much lower than 80 to 90 pounds, and the weight of the 5.25 inches ammunition caused serious difficulties. The number and disposition of guns varying from ship to ship. King George V in September 1945 carrying 8 Mark VI octuple pom-poms, 2 quadruple 40mm Bofors Mk2, 2 single 40mm Bofors, and 24 single 20mm Oerlikon cannon. That's all for today. See you in another video.